to the order of the. Don't know what that was. Is there anyone that wants to change the order of the presentations in the meeting? If not, well, the agenda stands as distributed. Okay, the November 10th, 2021 meeting of the Indiana Environmental Rules Board will come to order. A quorum of the board is present. And today we have a new board member, Mr. Michael Chambers from Eli Lilly. Mr. Chambers, are you on yet? Well, he's not on yet, but when he gets on, we'll have a chance to meet him. He replaces Paul Gilson, who was sent someplace on the East Coast by Lilly. Ryan, do you want to go ahead and cover the meeting logistics for in-person and remote participants?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Just one issue here.
You know what that is?
Yeah, I think, is that fixed? All right. So my name is Ryan Clem, Communications Director with IDEM. We will be taking questions and comments at today's hearing. For those in the room who would like to speak, there are speaker cards over with Carla, so please fill out a speaker card if you're in the room today. For those members of the public joining via Zoom, if you would like to speak today, please use the raise hand or chat feature. At the bottom of the top of your screen, you'll see the menu bar, and in the middle of that menu, there should be a chat icon and also a raised hand option. Please utilize either one of those options if you have any questions or comments, and you will be called upon at the appropriate time. For those joining by phone, if you have a question or comment, you can raise your hand by pressing *9, and then when called upon, please press *6 to unmute yourself. For everyone in today's meeting, please identify yourself when speaking. If any members of the media have joined, please use the chat feature or send an email to media@idem.in.gov if you have any questions. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted on IDEM's website. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Chairwoman Guard.
Okay, are there any questions for Ryan about how you use the features to participate? Okay, our first order of business today is the approval of the summary of the August the 11th, 2021 board meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the summary as presented? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. This is Ted Nemec.
Is there a second?
Second, Alexandrovich.
Voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The minutes are approved unanimously as distributed. Commissioner, your report, please.
Provide your consent to be recorded. You are muted.
Commissioner?
He's not here yet, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, we'll go on and Chris Peterson with her rulemaking report.
Hello, Chris Peterson in the Rules Development Branch of the Office of Legal Counsel. Our next board meeting is tentatively scheduled for February 9th, 2022. At that meeting, we anticipate presenting the 3 rules for final adoption that will be presented today for preliminary adoption. Those are public water system definition and the water and waste program permit fee rulemakings. Also, a second final adoption is needed for the satellite manure storage systems, storage structures reference updates rulemaking. This rule had to be recalled for procedural error, which has been corrected, but it must be final adopted again. The rule language has not changed since the previous final adoption in August, except to correct a typographical error. I'm happy to answer any questions board members may have about any of the rulemakings before moving on to the air permitting report.
Are there any questions for Chris? Thank you, Chris.
Right, the air permitting report was submitted or was included in your board packet. It's provided each year, usually at the last board meeting of the year. Jenny Acker was supposed to be, I don't know if she's arrived, but are there any questions about the air permitting report?
I don't have a question, but when I was reading through it, and thank you for presenting it, I thought it might be interesting if we could see a long-term trend on a lot of the data that you present, rather than just the last year. You know, maybe by annual averages.
Okay, I will pass that on to Jenny in the air. Any other questions?
Don't think so.
All right.
Well, thank you, Chris. Today, we will have hearings for the following board actions: adoption of Davies and Pike County SO2 redesignations, Fort Wayne combined sewer overflow wet weather limited use designations, preliminary adoption of public water system definition, water program permitting fees, and waste program permitting fees, and final adoption of septic management. We will also have a presentation of 4 non-real policy documents today on supplemental sampling guidance, supplemental characterization guidance, addressing methane at anaerobic bioremediation sites, and supplemental guidance on engineered exposure controls. The rules being considered today at today's meeting were included in board packets and are available for public inspection at the Office of Legal Counsel, 13th floor, Government Center North. The entire board packet is also available on IDEM's website at least 1 week prior to each board meeting. A written transcript of today's meeting will be made. The transcript and any written submissions will be open for public inspection at the Office of Legal Counsel. A copy of the transcript will be posted on the rules page of the agency website when it becomes available. Will the official reporter of the cause please stand, raise your hand, and state your name?
Lindy Meyer.
Do you solemnly affirm that you will keep complete and true notes of all that transpires and prepare a transcript thereof and faithfully perform all duties imposed upon you as an official reporter of the state of Indiana?
Yes.
Thank you. Now we'll have a public hearing before the Environmental Rules Board of the state of Indiana concerning the adoption of amendments to rules at 326 IAC 1-4-15 and 326 IAC 1-4-64 regarding the redesignation of a portion of Davies and Pike counties for the sulfur dioxide standard. I will now introduce Exhibit A, the draft rule, into the record of the hearing. Kaylin Walsh will present the rule.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Keelan Walsh, and I'm presenting rule number 21-258, sulfur dioxide redesignation for Davies and Pike counties in Indiana for your consideration. The Clean Air Act requires that US EPA set national ambient air quality standards, or NAAQS, for pollutants that cause or contribute to air pollution which may reasonably be anticipated to endanger public health and welfare. Each county in Indiana is classified or designated as being in attainment if air quality monitoring or modeling indicate that the area is meeting the NAAQS. Areas are designated as non-attainment if the measured concentrations of one or more of these criteria pollutants exceed the max or contribute significant amounts of pollutants to an area that measures air quality that does not meet the max. An area can be redesignated from non-attainment to attainment if the area has demonstrated attainment of the standard and if US EPA has determined that the improvement in air quality is due to permanent and enforceable reductions in emissions. Indiana's attainment status tables at 326 IAC 1-4 are periodically updated to reflect each county's attainment status. On October 24th, 2018, Indiana submitted a request for approval to US EPA of the Southwest Indiana non-attainment areas redesignation and maintenance plan and provided supplemental information to US EPA on August 25th, 2020. On March 2nd, 2021, US EPA published the approved request for redesignation of the Southwest Indiana SO2 non-attainment area for Beale Township in Davies County and Washington Township in Pike County to attainment for the 2010 1-hour primary SO2 max. In this final action, US EPA found that Indiana had demonstrated that this area is attaining the 2010 SO2 max and that the improvement in air quality is due to permanent enforceable reductions of SO2 in the area. US EPA also approved Indiana's maintenance plan, which is designed to ensure that the area will continue to maintain the SO2 max in the future. This rule amends through 26 IAC 1-415 and 1-464 to update the attainment designation statuses for Beale Township in Davies County and Washington Township in Pike County under the 2010 1-hour primary max for SO2. This rule also amends these two sections to update the designation statuses for the remaining portions of Davies and Pike counties to unclassifiable or attainment under the 2010 1-hour primary SO2 max as published by US EPA on January 19th, 2018. And to clarify that these counties are designated as better than national secondary standards as published on March 3rd, 1978. In addition to improving air quality in the area, the updates to the attainment designation statuses for Davies and Pike counties will ease state and federal permitting burdens for the identified portions of these counties. A separate rulemaking amends 326 IAC 1-4 to update the attainment designation status for 90 Indiana counties under the primary and secondary NAAQS for SO2, and the 2015 8-hour Porter County ozone designation status was initiated after the notice for this rule was published in the Indiana Register. Therefore, the SO2 national secondary standard for Davies and Pike counties has been updated in this rulemaking instead of the future SO2 designations rulemaking. This will ensure that the SO2 updates for Davies and Pike counties are contained in one rulemaking to avoid confusion and potential crossover errors between the two rules. Item requests that the board final adopt this rule as presented, and program staff are available to answer any further questions you may have. Thank you.
Any questions for Caitlin? Thank you. Are there any speaker cards?
No.
Okay. This hearing is concluded. The board will now consider adoption of amendments to 326 IEC 1-4-15 and 326 IEC 1-4-64, Davies and Pike Counties SO2 redesignation. Is there any board discussion? I need a motion to be made to adopt the rule as presented.
So moved, Alexandrovich.
Is there a second?
Second, Ann Collier.
Okay, call the roll. Dr. Nemick,
Yes.
Dr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mr. Green? Mr. Green? He was here. Mr. Davidson?
Yes.
Excuse me, this is Mr. Green, I'm sorry.
Okay, I thought you were here. Ms.
You are
Nelson,
muted.
I vote yea.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Etzler,
I will abstain since I didn't participate in the discussion.
beg your pardon?
I will abstain because I was not on the call participating in the discussion.
You are on speaker.
Mr. Bortner,
Yes.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
and Mr. Woski.
Yes.
The chair votes aye. The vote is 10-0 with one abstention. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chambers, when we introduced, we're going through introductions, which we didn't complete. We want to welcome you.
Thank you. I'm here.
And so we hope that you find this interesting, and I know you'll make a lot of contribution to our discussions. You know, we didn't go around and introduce the board, and Mr. Chambers wasn't here, and I'd like for him to know who all's on the board and who they represent. So before we move on to the next item, let's do that. So I'll introduce myself first. I'm Beverly Gard, chairman of the board, former state senator. Dr. Nimick, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Ted Nemec, and I'm the medical representative. Thank you.
Commissioner?
Bruno Piggott, Commissioner Ida.
Ms. Nelson?
Hi, Katie Nelson, and I'm the representative from the Lieutenant Governor's office.
Mr. Green? Can't hear you. Unmute. Unmute. Can you unmute? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's good.
All right. Yeah, I'm RT Green from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm a citizen representative.
Cal?
Calvin Davidson, local garbage man, and I represent the solid waste collection recycling industry.
Dr. Alexandrovich?
Morning or afternoon. I'm Joanne Alexandrovich, and I represent local governments.
Chris?
Yes, my name's Chris Horn and I represent organized labor. I live in Southwest Indiana.
Mr. Schuler?
Michael Schuler, representing construction, New Albany, Indiana.
Matt Stuckey?
I'm not on the board, but this is Matt Stuckey. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Air Quality.
Okay, well, you were on here, so
That's
you
okay.
get introduced.
There you go.
Angelique Collier?
Good afternoon and welcome to the board. I'm Angelique Collier, representing Public Utilities.
Bannister? Mr. or Ms. Bannister?
Yes, my name is Tim Bannister. I'm representing the NWRA Indiana chapter.
Okay. Mr. Bortner?
Dan Bortner, representing the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, and welcome to the board.
Okay, welcome. Beth Meyer? Beth Ed Meyer?
Hi, this is Beth Admeyer. I am with IDEM's Office of Legal Counsel.
Jenny Acker? Jenny?
The unmute didn't want to work. I'm Jenny Acker. I'm the branch chief for the air permits.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer Baker? Jennifer? She must have stepped away. Mark Waskey?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Mark Wassey, representative from the IEDC.
And Mr. Chambers, you introduced yourself.
Hello, Michael Chambers. I'm from Eli Lilly and representing manufacturing.
There's a phone with a long number after it, and I have no idea who that is.
That's Bill Etzler, and I represent small business, and I'm from Fort Wayne.
Okay, Bill, I'm glad to know that's what you look like today. Thank you. Never seen you look quite like that before. Okay, and out in the audience, we have Nancy King, who's the chief legal counsel, and you've heard from a couple of the other people that will have been involved with this. Okay, let's move on to public hearing before the Environmental Rules Board of the State of Indiana concerning adoption of amendments to rules at 327 IAC 2-1-3.1 and 327 IAC 2-1.1 Fort Wayne SO2 wet weather limited use designation rule. I will now introduce Exhibit H, the draft rule, into the record of the hearing. Marion Stevens will present the rule.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I am Marianne Stevens, a rule writer in the Office of Legal Counsel, Rules Development Branch. This rulemaking establishes a combined sewer overflow wet weather limited use subcategory of the recreational use designation under authority provided by Indiana Code 1318-3-2.5, the Clean Water Act, and federal regulations at 40 CFR 131.10. The rulemaking process to add a CSO wet weather limited use subcategory to Title 327 for a CSO community is found at IC 1314-9-14. The Section 14 rulemaking process requires one posting in the Indiana Register of the proposed rule with a written comment period and one hearing before this board with the opportunity for public comment. Communities with combined sewers were required under the Clean Water Act and NPDES requirements to prepare and implement a long-term control plan describing what steps the CSO community would take to address combined sewer overflows. The CSO communities also have an option to conduct a use attainability analysis in order to change the designated use of waters receiving combined sewer overflow. The establishment of a CSO wet weather limited use subcategory for Fort Wayne will be the second subcategory adopted by this board. CWA Authority's Indianapolis CSO wet weather limited use subcategory adopted by the Environmental Rules Board in January of 2020 was the first. The City of Fort Wayne conducted a use attainability analysis and IDEM approved it on July 9th, 2020. The analysis determined that even after completion of the long-term control plan, which for Fort Wayne includes construction of an underground tunnel to store stormwater during high flow for treatment later, and associated sewer projects, It is expected that there will be limited combined sewer overflow events each year. Fort Wayne's use attainability analysis provided sufficient information to initiate changing the designated recreational use for portions of 7 Fort Wayne area water bodies from full body contact to the CSO wet weather limited use subcategory of Indiana's recreational use designation as provided in IC 13-18-3-2.5. With the subcategory, the 7 designated waterways will not be held to the recreational use water quality standard for E. coli bacteria for up to 4 days following the date that a combined sewer overflow discharge ends. At all other times, the recreational use water quality standards are in effect. The CSO wet weather limited use subcategory cannot be used by a CSO community until its long-term control plan is fully implemented. Complete implementation of Fort Wayne's long-term control plan is expected to occur in 2025, after which the CSO wet weather limited use subcategory will be effective. Full implementation of the long-term control plan requires that CSO events that occur must be consistent with the performance criteria of the long-term control plan, including a maximum of 1 annual untreated CSO event per typical year to the St. Joseph River and 4 annual untreated CSO events per typical year to designated waters other than the St. Joseph River. This rulemaking amends 327 IC 2-1-3.1, adds 327 IC 2-1.1, and repeals 327 IC 2-1-11.5. When the rulemaking was drafted to establish the CSO wet weather limited use subcategory for the Indianapolis area waterways, it was placed in the new section at 327 IC 2-1-11.5. As the only community with a subcategory at that time, a section was sufficient to contain the CWA authority's Indianapolis CSO wet weather limited use subcategory. With Fort Wayne potentially to become the second CSO wet weather limited use subcategory, the decision was made to repeal section 11.5 and place both the CWA authority's Indianapolis subcategory and the Fort Wayne subcategory in a new rule at 327 IC 2-1.1, which will be able to accommodate any future communities that become eligible to have a CSO wet weather limited use subcategory. IDEM believes the proposed rule meets the Indiana statutory and federal requirements for establishing a combined sewer overflow wet weather limited use subcategory of the recreational use designation for Wayne's use for Fort Wayne, and therefore ask the board's vote for adoption. If there are any questions, I can provide answers, as well as the IDEM staff members from the Office of Water Quality can provide more detailed answers.
Are there any questions for Mary Ann? Mary Ann, the question that I have is, do you have many of these requests like this?
St. Paul would be a good one to answer that.
My name is Paul Hickenbotham. I'm the Deputy Assistant Commissioner for the Office of Water Quality. Right now, Fort Wayne will be the second one who's asking for this, and we are currently expecting 22 to 23 more will come in. We'll ask for this as well at a future date, as required by the long-term control plans. They are a bit for your communities.
Do you anticipate those being as smooth as this one's gone?
Yeah, I think these are actually getting better as we move through this process and we learn it, as well as EPA's approval, the CWA authority, the Indianapolis Waterway rulemaking. They are now comfortable with it as well. So I see it just getting easier as we move through these and do more of them.
Okay, I appreciate your answer. Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Are there any speaker cards?
Yes, we do have one speaker here. Dan D will speak to the board.
Good afternoon. My name is Dan Deep. I'm with Ship Garden LLP. Here on behalf of the city of Fort Wayne. I simply wanted to speak to express the city's support of this proposal. We believe it appropriately closes out the wet weather paradigm envisioned by the Indiana statute. And we also wish to express our appreciation for the diligent work of item staff in working through the process to where we are prepared for hopefully final adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the witness? Any other speaker cards?
No, no others.
Okay, this hearing is concluded. The board will now consider adoption of amendments to rules at 327 IEC 2-1-3.1 and 327 IEC 2-1.1 Fort Wayne CSO wet weather unlimited use designation rule. Any board discussion? Is there a motion to adopt the draft rule?
So
Is there-
moved, Anjali Collier.
Is there a second?
So move, Madam Chair.
Second.
Dan Bortner.
Thank you. Any additional questions? This is a roll call vote. Dr. Nemec,
Yes.
Dr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson, Cal. Must have jumped off for a while. Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Etzler,
Yes.
Mr. Bortner,
Yes.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Waskey.
Yes.
The chair votes aye. The vote is 12 yes, 0 nay. The draft rule is adopted. This is a public hearing before the Environmental Rules Board of the State of Indiana concerning final adoption of amendments to Rules 327 IEC 7.1 septage management. I will now introduce Exhibit C, the preliminarily adopted rule with items suggested changes into the record of the hearing. Crystal Hackney will present the rule.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Crystal Hackney, and I am here. I am a rule writer in the Rules Development Branch within the Office of Legal Counsel. I am here to present the septage management rule. Septage is the human excreta, water, scum, sludge, sewage, and incidental or accidental seepage from sewage disposal systems. It also includes the retained contents of sewage holding tanks and portable sanitary units, grease, fats, and retained waste from grease traps or interceptors, and human wastes carried in liquid from ordinary living processes. Managing the transportation, storage, treatment, and disposal, including land application, of septage protects the public from threats to water quality resulting from runoff, spills, and leaks that can result from the use of improper techniques and lack of safeguards. When water quality is degraded, members of the public may lose drinking water, fishing, and recreational resources. This rule amends 327 IAC 7.1 to address the changes that have been made through the Indiana General Assembly regarding the change of terminology from wastewater to septage and removal of vehicle licensing requirements. This rule also addresses record-keeping requirements for the cleaning of portable sanitary units, adds flexibility to septage transportation requirements, allows for alternate design and construction of storage and treatment facilities, and adds phosphorus testing requirements. The addition of phosphorus testing is to prevent septage from contributing to excess phosphorus in the soil to reduce contamination of surface and groundwaters. The draft rule also includes amendments to ensure the rules are consistent with the most current applicable state law, removes outdated language and forms, and reorganizes and revises language for improved clarity and understanding. After considering board member questions about the proposed rule language at the preliminary adoption hearing on August 14th of 2019, item determined that surface application of septage is not permitted by Indiana Code, IC 1311-114. The definition of land application for purposes of IC 131812 is limited to burial or incorporation of septage into the soil. Land application of domestic septage, grease, or a combination of domestic septage and grease by injection or incorporation will continue to be allowed in accordance with the statute. Item conducted outreach on this proposed change and provided a third comment period for interested parties to be able to submit official comments regarding these changes. Item received several unofficial comments, that is, comments that were received outside of the official third comment period timeline from June 10th of 2020 to July 1st, 2020, concerning the cost and practicality of removing surface application from the state rule. Because surface application of septage is not currently allowed under state law, and injection or incorporation of septage is more protective of the environment and human health, item has eliminated all references to surface application from the rule and limited the methods of land application to burial or incorporation into the soil only. Item has also included information brought into question at the preliminary adoption hearing, excuse me, regarding the soil sample collection method for the new phosphorus testing requirement under 327 IAC 7.187 to ensure the most accurate results are provided for land appliers and septage. Item determined that the best method for soil sample collection is for all soil tests to consist of one composite sample for every 20 acres, with each composite sample consisting of 20 representative subsamples. These samples must be analyzed for pH by a laboratory certified by the North American Proficiency Testing Program. Item has made changes to the rule language since preliminary adoption to provide clarification, consistency with federal and state requirements, and to provide further information on application requirements that were directly taken from the septage management application forms. Item has also made amendments to the rule language that remove redundant or vague information and requirements. Lastly, item has made changes to provide less restrictions for permittees regarding septic tank construction that will allow for advancements in technology with the tank material that is used. Item requests that the board final adopt this rule as presented, and program staff and myself are available to answer any further questions that you may have. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay, are there any speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
This hearing is concluded. The board will now consider final adoption of amendments to 327 IAC 7.1 septic management. Any board discussion? Is there a motion to adopt items suggested changes?
So moved. This is Katie Nelson.
Is there a second? Was there a second?
Second.
This will be a roll call vote. Dr. Nemec,
Yes.
Dr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson, Mr. Davidson, Cal, Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Essler,
Yes.
Mr. Bortner,
Yes.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Woski.
Yes.
The chair votes aye. The vote is 12 yes, 0 nay. Now we need a motion to final adopt the rules as amended.
So moved, Alexandrovich.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
This is for final adoption as amended. Dr. Nemec,
Yes.
Dr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Davison, Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Etzler,
Yes.
Mr. Bortner,
Yes.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Woski,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye. So the vote is 12 ayes, 0 nays. The rule is final adopted. And at this point, I think, Commissioner, are you still here?
I am.
Okay, we'll have your report. You weren't here when we started.
Yes, I apologize for being late, Madam Chair. I was in a meeting with the new US EPA Regional Administrator, Deborah Shore. She takes over responsibilities with the new federal administration. And we talked about some of the work that she's doing regarding where she's been and where she's going. She was a part of the Great Lakes Protection Fund in the past and an elected member of the Water Reclamation District in the Chicago area. And like to say that she was at the intersection of politics and policy, and believes that partnerships are essential and exciting in this time where infrastructure dollars are coming out as a result of the infrastructure bill that just passed. So one update is we have a new regional administrator in the US EPA Region 5. We at IDEM work closely with the regional administrator. Secondly, on the water and wastewater infrastructure front, I participated over the past month in testifying before the House and Senate Wastewater Task Force, which focused not only on infrastructure dollars available, but also on the challenges associated with ensuring that drinking water and wastewater systems remain in compliance with the terms of their permits in the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. The task force covered a number of topics, from wastewater treatment systems in small communities to operators and the need for new operators in areas where operators are retiring, and there are a large number of operators retiring to the different technologies associated with wastewater treatment. And a way forward, they're really focused on, are there ways to ensure that wastewater systems and drinking water systems across the state are able to either receive the help they need or move into different levels of control if they simply cannot operate their systems. The arrival of wastewater infrastructure dollars should really assist, especially with communities, but it also places a new burden on the regulatory agency as we work to ensure that those funds are distributed, and that once they're distributed, communities around the state receive the construction permits in water and wastewater that are necessary to ensure that they're able to construct those systems in accordance with the rules in Indiana. Our Office of Water Quality has been working closely with the IFA and the State Revolving Loan Fund. We're bolstering some of our staffing to ensure that we're able to process those permit requests in a timely manner. But also the State Revolving Fund program is working to ensure that the pipeline is not so congested that it's difficult to process those requests in a timely manner. So the big message here is the infrastructure dollars are going to impose requirements on the agency to process permit requests, and we're working in conjunction with the State Revolving Fund to ensure that that approval process is smooth. And finally, in regard to infrastructure, I'm a part of a Great Lakes Commission group that's working on infrastructure issues as well. So infrastructure and water and wastewater it is a big topic right now. Money is coming and lots of it, which is good for those communities that need to make improvements to their systems. It also means that we need to be staffed up to handle the flow. In addition to water and wastewater infrastructure, we have been working on ensuring that we bolster our resources in Northwest Indiana. As you may be aware, the United States Steel and other steel mills have had compliance problems over the past several years. There was a fish kill on the Little Calumet River. Most recently, U.S. Steel in Northwest Indiana, Gary Works and other places has had problems. There was an iron plume as a result of a discharge from the facility, oil sheens, and we're working in a three-pronged approach to deal with the issues at the steel mills. One of those approaches involves using our enforcement authority to ensure that the steel mills comply with the terms of the consent decrees and agreed orders that they've signed on to with the US EPA and the department. A second area that we're working on is to ensure that we bolster our presence at those steel mills. We're going to be hiring new inspectors to add to the crew that already inspects in that area so that we can more closely track the progress that they make to ensure that they put in place the infrastructure they need to ensure they comply with the requirements. And then thirdly, we'll be reaching out to the steel mills. We believe that not only should we answer to ensure that they're doing their job, but also that they speak to the public themselves to explain why they've had these issues in the past and what they're going to do to ensure that these exceedances of permit limits, these discharges of plumes, the fish kills that have been in existence in the past don't continue. And so we'll be encouraging them to meet with the community to talk about the improvements they're going to make at their facility. So that's a three-pronged approach with the steel mills up north. Finally, I want to mention wetlands. Wetlands is an issue, as Senator Gard knows, was before the state legislature during the last term, but also more recently, the federal government has been indicating that they are going to be revisiting the rule that is defining what a waters of the United States is. And they put together listening sessions. They're traveling around the country to talk with people. It's already affecting the way that we issue 401 water quality certifications, as well as the way that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers evaluates permit applications for the impact to wetlands throughout the state and throughout the country. We recently were notified by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that that they will not be processing 404 permits. That 404 refers to the section of the Clean Water Act that they derive their authority to issue permits that impact wetlands because of the changed nature of the regulatory scheme, both in terms of 401 certifications and the waters of the United States issue. I'm not too pleased with that. I'm not sure why they need to stop issuing 404 water quality certifications. And we'll be working to better understand why it is they're deciding at this point not to issue any. We're worried a little bit that, of course, that when permittees hear that they're not getting their permits on time, they'll wonder why our agency isn't doing its job. When in fact, it's the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that has decided that they won't be issuing 404 permits for some period of time that isn't defined by them. So those are some of the big issues. Finally, I want to mention PFAS. As you may know, there's been concern about this series of chemical compounds that is used in a variety of different instances, from the waterproof jackets we wear to the popcorn bags to firefighting foam. A lot of firefighters around the state of Indiana are very concerned that the firefighting foam that they use or can use, it contains PFAS chemicals, and they want to get it out of their systems. We've been working with the Department of Homeland Security, as well as the State Fire Marshal, to put together an effort, a coordinated effort, to identify which fire departments have this firefighting foam, and then pick up and dispose of this firefighting foam that contains these PFAS chemicals in an appropriate manner, so that they don't need to use it in the future in their firefighting processes, and do it at no cost to fire departments around the state. We sent out a survey to fire departments. We're getting responses back, and we're planning out the process for the collection of that firefighting foam. And I think that the firefighters are really happy that the agencies are working together on this initiative. So that's my report, Senator Gard, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
With respect to the Army Corps and approving permits for wetlands, if our statute had not been changed, would things be going along as normal here?
No, I mean, I wish I could say that, yes, that it was all because of the state statutory change. I think it was because of the federal changes, but we've also let all of our stakeholders know about these changes, because many of them are now even more greatly confused than they were in the past about whether they need a permit. And several had submitted applications, and we had done our part to process our 401 water quality certifications, and now their permit applications will be stuck at USCPA. So we'll be reaching out to the court to try to better understand why they feel that they can't process things anymore. It's my understanding from documents that I read and conversations I've had with USCPA that that was not the intent of the USCPA to stop the whole process, but rather to ensure that we had a process to move forward, and they were going back to the kind of case-by-case determination that was solidified in the Rapanos decision some years ago, and the guidance that resulted therefrom. So it's this sort of regulatory uncertainty does nothing for anybody. It's not also good to put a stop on it, but we'll be working with the Corps and USCPA in the future to try to figure out what the path forward is.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you, Commissioner. This is a public hearing before the Environmental Rules Board of the State of Indiana concerning final adoption of amendments to rules at 327 IEC 2-1-6 and 327 IEC 2-1.5-8 regarding metals criteria. I will now introduce Exhibit D, the rule as preliminarily adopted with items suggested changes into the record of the hearing. Marion Stevens will present the rule.
Hi, I'm Mary Ann Stevens again. Chairperson Guard just read the statutory citations for the metals criteria rule, which was finally adopted at the last board meeting. Nancy has just informed me that the mistake is on the script, so what I am here to present is a preliminary adoption for rulemaking that we are calling the definition of public water system. It's LSA document 21-132. And as I said, it is a preliminary adoption hearing. So, good afternoon, members of the board. I am Mary Ann Stevens, a rule writer in the Office of Legal Counsel, Rules Development Branch. This rulemaking is in response to the US EPA finding that the state's definition of public water system is not consistent with the federal definition. To correct this inconsistency, the state's definition of a public water system needs to add the words, quote, an average of, end quote, before the words, quote, at least 25 individuals, end quote, to all definitions of public water system in Article 8 of Title 327 in order to be as stringent as the federal definition. Additionally, a definition of public water system is being added to 327 IC 8-3.4-1, definition number 24, to include it and variations that occur in rule language, such as public water supply system, and the acronyms for these terms, and connect them to the definition of public water system at 327 IC 8-2-1, definition number 74. Similarly, additions have been made to the definitions of community water system and non-community water system to include variations of the terms used in rule language plus the acronyms for those terms. This rulemaking also is amending the rule language at 327 IC 8-2.5-2B2 by adding the term GAC-10 before enhanced coagulation. This is another US EPA requested clarification to make it clear that the GAC-10 treatment, which refers to 10 minutes of contact time in granular activated carbon filter beds, applies to enhanced coagulation as well as enhanced softening. These wording additions will cause no implementation change for drinking water systems because for years, IDEM has been determining whether a drinking water system is or is not a public water system according to the federal definition and applying the requirement that GAC-10 treatment applies to both enhanced coagulation and enhanced softening. IDEM's drinking water programs are delegated to the state from US EPA, which gives the federal agency authority to require IDEM to make these rule language changes so that IDEM can maintain primacy for the programs. Therefore, IDEM believes the requirements of US EPA have been met in this rulemaking, and we ask the board to vote for preliminary adoption. If there are any questions, I can provide answers as well as the IDEM staff members from the Office of Water Quality who can provide more detailed answers.
Any questions? Mary Ann, did I say something wrong at the beginning?
Well, as I walked up here, Nancy whispered to me that there's a mistake in the script and must have repeated language from the August board meeting when I presented the final adoption for metals criteria rulemaking, which I can happily tell everybody. We got notice last Friday that the rule has made its way through the promulgation process. It was filed by the publisher of the Never Register last Friday, November 5th, which means that that long-term rulemaking will become effective 30 days after filing, so that will be December 5th. It's extra new, but I'm just very happy to be able to say that.
Okay, so this is this is for a preliminary adoption or final adoption.
This is preliminary adoption.
Okay.
Definition of public water system, LSA document number 21-132.
Okay. Any speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
Pardon me?
No speaker cards.
Okay. The hearing is concluded. The board will now consider preliminary adoption of amendments to the rules 327 IEC 8-1-3, 327 IEC 8-2-1, 327 IEC 8-2.5-2, 327 IEC 8-4.1-1, and 327 IEC 8-10-1 regarding public water system definition. Any board discussion? Is there a motion to preliminarily adopt the rule, the draft rule?
So moved, Angelique Collier.
Is there a second?
This is RT Green. I so second it.
Okay, this is a roll call vote. Dr. Nemec,
Yes.
Dr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson, Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Etzler,
Yes.
Mr. Bortner,
Yes.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Woski,
Yes.
Chairman Garden, yes. So the vote is 12 ayes, 0 nays. The rule is preliminarily adopted. Okay, this is a public hearing before the Environmental Rules Board of the State of Indiana concerning preliminary adoption of amendments to Rules 327 IEC 3-5-5, 327 IEC 5-3-2, 327 IEC 5-21-3, 327 IEC 8-3-7, 327 IEC 15-16-5, 327 IEC 15-16-10, and 327 IEC 19-7.7-1, in addition of 327 IEC 5-3-17, 327 IEC 5-21-12, and 327 IEC 19-9-2 regarding water program permitting fees. I will now introduce E, the draft rule, into the record of the hearing. Mary Ann Stevens will present the rule.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Mary Ann Stevens, a rule writer in the Office of Legal Counsel, Rules Development Branch. This rulemaking to increase permitting fees for Ivan's water program is conducted under the authority of Public Law 250-2019, which was passed by the 2019 General Assembly to amend the process in IC 13-16 concerning the adoption of environmental fees by the Environmental Rules Board. In addition to the revisions to IC 13-16 that allow for future rulemakings to increase environmental fees by not more than 10% in a 5-year time period, Public Law 250-2019 requires the Environmental Rules Board to adopt the rules once before January 1, 2022, a date now extended to January 1, 2023, to increase the amount of the fees for water-related programs under IC 13-1810, IC 13-1820, and IC 13-1820.5 regarding confined feeding operations, NPDES permits, and public water systems, respectively. The increased water program fees, along with increased fees for solid waste and hazardous waste programs under IC 1320-21 and IC 1322-12, are limited to an aggregate increase of $3.2 million, more than the aggregate fee revenue actually received in the year immediately preceding the proposed fee increases. The water program fee increases will result in increased revenue for items water programs of approximately $1,490,110. The statutes named in Public Law 250-2019 for the water program fees are the current location of permit application fees and flow-based annual fees for NPDES and drinking water permits. Construction permit fees are currently found in Title 327. Through this rulemaking, the permit application and flow-based annual fees are being added to the administrative rules in Title 327. Public Law 250-2019 requires that the current statutory fees be removed from the statutes in the next legislative session after the completion of this rulemaking. At the board's August meeting, Commissioner Pickett explained that the fee increases that have already been adopted for the AIR program are not enough to cover the actual cost of conducting the program. Similarly, the collective water program fees have not been sufficient for some time to cover items costs of operating the water program. The fees associated with issuing permits, amendments, modifications, and renewals have not changed since 1996 for NPDES permits, 2003 for public water system permits, and 1997 for confined feeding operation permits. However, the fees increased under this rulemaking will help items water program. Therefore, we ask for the vote for adoption. If there are any questions, I can provide answers as well as other items staff members who are here today. Thank you.
Mary Ann and Madam Chair, if I might add just a comment or two. First of all, it should be noted that the legislation that this was based on was worked on by a number of folks within the agency. Part of the reason I don't see a large crowd of people who's in this is that we both conducted a study, thanks to Brent Geis and the folks in our finance area, that indicated and proved that we needed the money just to maintain our operations. But also we engaged in a wide variety of discussions with all of the stakeholders in advance of the legislation and in advance of the rulemaking. And it's my understanding, looking at the information here, that we received only a couple of comments from the stakeholders. And that's been due to the hard work that's been done on part of the staff at IDEM. I want to just point out Nancy King for her work on this fees rule. It was extensive, and I will tell you, it's lasted years. So we are able to answer any questions. It's been a big endeavor, and I'm just thankful we've gotten to this point today. Thank you.
Well, and thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Nancy, for your work on this. Are there any questions from anyone for either Mary Ann or Nancy or the Commissioner? Are there any speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
Did you say no?
That's correct. No speaker cards.
Then this hearing is concluded. The board will now consider preliminary adoption of amendments to rules at 327 IEC 3-5-5, 327 IEC 5-3-2, 327 IEC 5-21-3, 327 IEC 8-3-7, 327 IEC 15-16-5, 327 IEC 15-16-10, and 327 IEC 19-7-1, and the addition of 327 IEC 5-3-17, 327 IEC 5-21-12, and 327 IEC 19-9-2 regarding water program permitting fees. Is there any board discussion? Is there a motion to preliminarily adopt the draft rule?
So moved, Bill Etzler.
Is there a second?
This
There
is
a
RT
second?
Green, my second.
Okay, thank you. This will be a roll call vote for preliminary adoption of water fees. Um, Dr. Nemec,
Yes.
Dr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson, Ms.
Chair,
Nelson.
sorry,
Pardon me?
I just made it back. Sorry, I missed the discussion, but I'll abstain since I wasn't here for all of that.
Okay. Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Etzler,
Yes.
Mr. Mortner,
Yes.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Woski.
Yes.
The chair votes aye. It'll be 12 ayes, 0 nays. The rule has been preliminarily adopted. This is a public hearing before the Environmental Rules Board of the State of Indiana concerning preliminary adoption of amendments to rules at 329 IC 3.1-1-14.1, 329 IC 10-11-8, 329 IC 10-11-9, 329 IC 11-9.4.1 and 329 IC 15-3-4, and the repeal of 329 IC 15-3-7 and 329 IC 15-4-3 regarding waste program permitting fees. I will now introduce Exhibit F, the draft rule, into the record of the hearing. Chris Peterson will present the rule.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Chris Peterson. I am in the Rules Development Branch and Items Office of Legal Counsel. This rulemaking incorporates into the Indiana Administrative Code fee increases for the solid and hazardous waste permitting programs currently in IC 13-20-21 and IC 13-22-12. These fees have not been raised since 1996. Upon completion of this rule, the fees will be removed from the statute in accordance with Public Law 250-2019. As you just heard in the presentation for the water program permitting fees, the deadline for completing these rulemakings was extended to January 1st of 2023. And after this rulemaking is complete, future increases are limited to once every 5 years and by no more than 10%. Of the $3.2 million established for the water and waste fee increases, the solid and hazardous waste fees in the draft rule would increase the waste program revenue by approximately $1.7 million. The proposed fee amounts in the draft rule were determined based on an analysis of current fee revenue and permitting related costs incurred by item. This rule not only addresses the statutory requirement, but is essential to support the waste permitting programs. Item requests that the board preliminarily adopt this rule. Staff are here to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Chris? Are there any speaker cards?
No speaker cards.
This hearing is concluded. The board will now consider preliminary adoption of amendments to rules at 329 IEC 3.1-1-14.1, 329 IEC 10-11-8, 329 IEC 10-11-9, 329 IEC 11-9-4.1 and 329 IEC 15-3-4, and the repeal of 329 IEC 15-3-7 and 329 IEC 15-4-3 regarding waste program permitting fees. Is there any board discussion? Is there a motion to preliminarily adopt the draft rule?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second, Katie Nelson.
Okay, Dr. Nemec,
Yes.
Dr. Alexandrovich,
Yes.
Mr. Green,
Yes.
Mr. Davidson,
Yes.
Ms. Nelson,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Ms. Collier,
Yes.
Mr. Schuler,
Yes.
Mr. Etzler,
Yes.
Mr. Bortner,
Yes.
Mr. Chambers,
Yes.
Mr. Woski,
Yes.
and the chair votes aye. So the tally is 13 ayes, 0 nays. The preliminary rule is adopted. We're almost through. Non-real policy documents are next. We will now have a presentation on 4 non-real policy documents by Harold Templin of IDEM's Office of Land Quality regarding supplemental sampling guidance, supplemental characterization guidance, addressing methane at anaerobic bioremediation sites, supplemental guidance on engineered exposure controls. Are there any questions for Mr. Templin? Mr. Templin?
Yes. Good afternoon, members of the Environmental Rules Board. My name is Harold Templin. I'm a geological technical evaluation specialist in the Science Services branch of the Office of Land Quality and the lead for the Office Technical Evaluation Group. The Technical Evaluation Group has used a multidisciplinary approach to evaluate proposed new technologies for investigating and clearing up contamination in soil and groundwater. The TAG developed the technical guidance documents for IDEM staff and the public describing the technologies, its applicability, and effectiveness. While the law requires that owner-operators have a contaminated site, must take such actions as necessary to ensure that there are no unacceptable risks to those exposed. There's no current rules to provide how that is to be done. For more than 10 years, IDEM staff and the public have been using these documents to interpret the statutes and provide direction for Remediation Act and remove. Because of these actions, the Office of Legal Counsel recommends that these documents go through the non-rule policy procedure. Office of Land Quality, the Office of Legal Counsel also suggested that it would be expedient to combine these guidance documents of like subject matter into one non-rule policy document. Therefore, today I'm bringing before you 4 non-rule policy documents, Waste 0071 through 0074. The technical guidance documents refer to, and these four non-rule policy documents are developed by describing the technology, its advantages, limitations, problems encountered, and safety issues. The PEG uses their experience with technology, peer-reviewed literature, US EPA documents, and detailed case studies from the public to do these evaluations. They do not include requirements, nor do they verify their effectiveness in conditions not identified in the evaluation. Mention of trade names or commercial products do not constitute endorsement or recommendation by IDEA. Waste 0071 combines the sampling guidance documents described in a couple of specific devices that are used to collect groundwater, procedures that can be used in collecting soil samples of volatile organics, and 2 procedures for preparing monitoring wells for collecting groundwater samples. Waste 0072 is the group of technical guidance documents describing attributes of site characterization for land remediation and specific land forms or specific land uses, such as the aquatards, karst drain, man-made preferential pathways, shallow groundwater, vapor intrusion, dry cleaners, small arm firing ranges, and the use of high-tech, high-resolution tools in the site characterization. Waste 0073 addresses a specific technical issue of methane gas generation at many remediation sites. Waste 0074 is grouping of technical guidance documents on the use of engineering control within a remedy. These controls include barriers such as covers, fences, slurry walls. There's also a guidance on the vapor mitigation system. Other technical guidance documents that have been developed by TAG will be incorporated in the risk-based closure guide, which will be brought before you at a future date. We received no comments from the public or staff during this comment period of July 7th through August 23rd, 2021. We suggest that this demonstrates that the guidance documents have been accepted for their use and are routinely updated with appropriate new advances in the technology. If you have any questions, I will be pleased to address them. Thank you for your attention.
Any questions?
I do have a few questions and comments, Chairman Guard.
Okay, yeah.
Thanks. I understand that these are just basically a list of references, your technical guidance documents. So I thought it was kind of unique to put it as a non-policy guidance, non-policy document. So I was wondering how you planned on updating them. You mentioned you were going to update them. That's one comment I have. The second one is on, you mentioned in your presentation that any mention of commercial product is not an endorsement. I'm not sure that's anywhere written in the document there, so you might want to check on that. And my third one was in the characterization guidance. The last reference on page 10 is a personal communication by John Saul, and somehow I don't think that's available to anybody using this. It's basically what you'd put in a reference list. Thanks.
Does any item staff have any response to any of her comments?
The uniqueness of these non-rule policy documents were that they list all the technical information that was used by the group to develop the policies. And on the last page of the non-rule policy, the appendices are the links to those documents which have been established on IDEM's cleanup page, webpage, so that when they would click on that, the policy document would come up. At present, the way that we understand a non-rule policy document would be updated is that if new technology or we receive comments that we need, that the non-rule, that some of these technical documents are not up to date, we would see them as a minor change to this non-rule policy and would update the technical guidance document and with the concurrence of the Office of Legal Counsel. And the last issue of the personal communication, what occurs is that there are several of the documents that are in the non-rule policy that are not available on the web. Well, I will not say some. There are some, and these would be obtained by contacting the Office of Land Quality, the Science Services branch, where we give the number for if they wanted to see these documents. And so that personal communication was an email that's being saved.
Well, that maybe something could be added there in terms of if they were interested in that personal communication to contact whomever to get a copy of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I think transparency is important in these discussions and in these issues. And it seems to me that that letter would be part of the public record. Anybody else? Okay. And there's no vote on that.
No, the non-rule policies don't require a vote.
Right.
Madam Chair, there's one question. T. Bannister had a question. I don't know if that person can unmute, but the question is if a new technological method becomes available but is not listed in the NRDP, will items still consider them for use?
That is for someone with my paper. What we do is we do consider the technical evaluations. It's a matter of whether it raises itself up to the point of needing to be a public transparent before on the webpage.
Okay, any more?
I don't see any more.
Thank you, Harold.
Okay. The board was provided responses to the questions, and this is concerning the citizens petition, put to both the agency and the petitioners who have asked this board to consider adopting the federal 2012 recreational water quality standards to address CSO issues and their requirements to abate CSOS under existing state and federal consent decrees and orders. The agency and the petitioners have been in discussions for many months, attempting to work through the issues, and they have worked for a long time. Our board member, Bill Etzler, has attended these meetings as well. And I've asked Bill, or am asking Bill to provide us with a write-up of his perspective on this issue. Given Bill's experience in this area, I believe he will be able to provide us with information to enable us to have an informed discussion, which I would like to have at our next meeting. It is my understanding that both the petitioners and the agency would like to give their members time to digest the information provided while both sides continue their discussions. However, if anyone has any questions related to the information provided by either of the petitioners or the agency today, we can raise them now. Are there any questions that any of you have? Okay, well, I'd like to ask the agency to send Bill's write-up to the board members as soon as he submits it to you so that we can have time to review it and the information provided in today's board packet and any additional information that comes from continuing discussions between now and the next scheduled board meeting. Bill, how does that suit you?
Well, I'm more than happy to do that. Having been involved with the work group, I think we have made a great deal of progress, and I think there's been a real sharing of ideas and an understanding of each side's position. And as you suggested, I believe that I can put together a document that will make it easy for the board to understand where both parties are at in this discussion and provide us with some information on how the parties might move forward.
Well, that would be great. And it would be great to have this resolved in some way after the next meeting.
We're happy to distribute Bill's, his evaluation of the matter to all the board members.
How do you, Dr. Alexandrovich?
Oh, yeah, I have a question for Bill, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I read through all the material that was sent to us and I really appreciate it all. It looks like you are making progress. And I kind of like that implementation document. But Bill, one question that I have, and maybe you can address it in your document, it seems like the petitioners are saying we don't need to go to the EPA because we won't be adopting a new standard and that this implementation would be based in the permits. But I'm not, to me, it doesn't that doesn't quite make sense. I think we need to adopt the standard in order to put it into the permit. So maybe you can, in your document, you could help me with that confusion.
I will do that.
Thank you.
And that's a very good point.
Is there any other point that people would like for Bill to address in his document? Well, Bill, I appreciate you taking the time to be as involved in this as you've been. I know this has been kind of your career is these kind of issues. So if you don't mind, go ahead and do that. And then they'll pass it, the agency will pass it on to us just as soon as you get it to them.
Okay.
And if anybody thinks of any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to send them to the agency and then they'll forward them on to Bill.
And Chair Guard, we do have someone here to speak on that issue.
Okay,
Craig Williams.
yes.
Thank you. I just really quickly, I wanted to give an update to the board, and we're happy to continue working with IDEM. The agency's been fantastic to work with. This is a complex topic for sure. And I think that a lot of the struggles that we've probably had is because Indiana is on that leading edge nationally on this issue of trying to find good working solutions for Indiana communities. As noted, we have submitted responses to the board members' questions for their review. And with that, the white paper that puts forth what we believe would be a workable solution for every Indiana CSO community. We appreciate that there are now 2 approved UAAs. And while the UAA certainly is a solution for this issue, we don't believe it is the solution for necessarily for every Indiana community. I'll respectfully note here that the apparent ease for the board and the agency to approve Fort Wayne's UAA is contrasted by the significant cost and burden on the part of the applicant to prepare and submit the UAA. I'd also like to just remind the board that EPA must also provide approval of individual UAAs. And certainly Commissioner Pickett's update with EPA's change in 404 approvals demonstrates one of our concerns of the potential uncertainty that future UAA applicants could face with their submissions. In our last work group meeting with IDEM staff, we were presented with the concept of a focused UAA that the agency wishes to pursue. And certainly while we believe that the implementation changes that we proposed in our white paper are the way to go, we're willing to work with IDEM staff on what a focused UAA would look like. And as such, we do, just for the record, we do respectfully request to table the petition again while we continue working with IDEM staff. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak to the subject? Okay, if not, then we will move to open forum. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board today? No. Well, that brings us to the end. The next meeting of the Environmental Rules Board is tentatively set for February the 9th, 2022 at 1:30 in Conference Room A, Indiana Government Center, or I assume Zoom if we need to do that. The meeting date is tentative and subject to change. We will keep everyone updated when this is confirmed or another date is chosen. Staff want to comment on that? Are you pretty set on February?
No big comments on that from staff. No.
Okay. Well, with that, do I hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. This is Ted Nemec.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
Yes, ma'am. Chris Horn.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Well, thank you all for your participation today. Good turnout. And again, we welcome Mr. Chambers. Okay.
Thank you, Chairwoman Barr.